A chilling digital system voice echoes inside Prince Cheon's head, announcing the activation of Sky Corporation's seventh generation Nano Machine. A lone, desperate figure tears through the dark, unforgiving wilderness, hunted like prey under the pale moonlight. The sound of snapping branches and ragged breathing echoes through the night as his escape comes to a sudden, violent halt. Trapped and broken, Prince Cheon collapses into the dirt, his legs refusing to move. He realizes with cold horror that his frantic flight was nothing more than a game to his pursuers. Shadows bleed from the trees as masked assassins corner the helpless royal. They mock his desperate hour-long sprint, treating his life-or-death struggle as mere amusement to pass the time. The killers remind him that his abdication and lack of martial talent mean nothing. In the brutal game of succession, merely carrying the royal bloodline is a death sentence. Insulted and backed into a corner, a spark of furious defiance ignites within the prince. He refuses to take their offered painless death, vowing instead to fight until his absolute last breath. With a feral roar, the untrained prince lunges forward in a suicidal counterattack. The assassins close in, expecting an effortless slaughter. Against all odds, a chaotic desperation strike connects, catching one of the assassins completely off guard. A spray of crimson stains the dark as a masked killer drops to the earth. The remaining hunters gasp in disbelief, realizing the boy's clumsy flailing was a calculated ruse to lower their guard. Fury replaces their amusement as they realize one of their own has fallen to a mere child. Retribution is swift and merciless. A cold blade pierces straight through the prince's midsection. He collapses in agony, gasping for air as his vision begins to blur. The lead assassin twists the blade with sadistic pleasure, promising an excruciatingly slow demise. As the prince's consciousness fades, a sudden, blinding flash of white light rips through the forest. The assassins shield their eyes in absolute shock as the brilliant anomaly shatters the darkness. Panic stirs in the woods as the wind violently whips around them. Out of nowhere, a mysterious figure materializes from the blinding radiance, standing defiantly behind the executioners. The stranger stands clad in bizarre, otherworldly garments crackling with vibrant blue electricity. The assassins can only stare in mute bewilderment at this impossible intruder. Before the killers can even react, the mysterious savior moves at blinding, imperceptible speed. He vanishes into thin air like water, leaving only the sound of displaced wind. A series of thunderous impacts echo through the clearing as the assassins are systematically dismantled in a matter of seconds. They never even see the strikes coming. The final assassin falls, leaving only the dying Prince Cheon bleeding out on the cold ground. His fading vision captures the stranger standing over him, wearing a calm, enigmatic smile. Kneeling beside his dying descendant, the futuristic traveler prepares an advanced metallic syringe. With no time left to explain, he realizes he must improvise to save the boy's life. The stranger plunges the needle directly into the prince's neck, initiating a high-tech transfusion. He whispers a final wish for his ancestor to succeed before his own body dissolves back into light. As the stranger vanishes into the ether, a cold, mechanical consciousness boots up within the dying prince's mind. A chilling digital system voice echoes inside Prince Cheon's head, announcing the activation of Sky Corporation's seventh generation Nano Machine. The legendary history of the Jianghu unfolds, a world long defined by a fragile balance between the forces of justice and the forces of evil. But from the shadows emerges the demonic cult, a ruthless faction seeking absolute strength above all else. This is the tragic tale of Cheon Yeo-Woon, an illegitimate prince born with a target on his back and a rightful claim to a heavily contested throne. Deep within a quiet room, the broken prince suddenly jolts awake, clutching his chest in sheer disbelief. Memory tells him his stomach was brutally run through with a blade, yet he draws breath, completely unharmed. Confused and trembling, he notices a horrific stench radiating from his own skin, which is covered in a sticky, black residue. Before he can make sense of the mystery, a calm, disembodied voice breaks through the silence, addressing him directly. Panic flares within the isolated prince as he scans the empty room, realizing the source of the speech is locked inside his own mind. The entity rejects the idea of magic or telepathy, introducing itself instead as the Sky Corporation's 7th generation Nano Machine. Stunned by words he cannot comprehend, the boy wonders if he is communicating with the fabled evil god worshipped by his cult. Outside his chambers, footsteps approach as a loyal guard guides a renowned physician toward the scene of the slaughter. They speak in hushed, urgent tones about the recent string of assassination attempts and the impossible miracle that occurred in the forest. The protector recounts the horrific carnage he witnessed, a clearing littered with the mutilated corpses of the elite killers, yet the prince was found sleeping soundly without a single scratch. As the men marvel at this inexplicable salvation, the entity within the room continues to recalibrate its language parameters to match the current historical era. The machine clearly states that it is not a deity, but a highly sophisticated technological construct designed to support the master's brain. Ready to transmit its basic operational data, the voice requests authorization, triggering a sudden, agonizing overload of foreign knowledge. The prince gasps and chokes, vomiting onto the wooden floorboards as his central nervous system violently adapts to the digital intrusion. As the dizziness subsides, the machine explains that the physical rejection is a natural one-time side effect of the neural link. Trembling, the young royal realizes that millions of invisible microscopic tools are now actively flowing through his veins. When he demands to know if they can leave his body, the system coldly informs him that it is programmed to remain permanently until the day he dies. Bitter and hardened by the realization that his own half-brothers are desperate to see him dead, the powerless boy accepts his strange new reality. Hearing a sudden knock at the door, he frantically commands the artificial intelligence to remain quiet so he won't be branded a madman. The nano machine immediately complies, slipping into a stealthy, silent monitoring mode as the door swings open. The guard and the physician rush inside, only to stop dead in their tracks, overwhelmed by the putrid odor filling the air. Believing something terrible has befallen the royal heir, the doctor quickly takes the prince's wrist to read his vital pulse. A profound shock registers on the old healer's face as he analyzes the results of the checkup. Far from being damaged, the young prince's body has undergone an impossible metamorphosis. Every trace of impurity has been forcibly purged from his system, completely unlocking his dormant energy pathways. For the first time in his desperate life, the once talentless prince looks down at the black stains on his skin, realizing he finally possesses the perfect physical vessel to master the ultimate arts of combat. The demonic cult is a battlefield of bloodlines, ruled by 6 colossal clans who hold absolute power over the destiny of the realm. Every decade, their heirs enter the brutal demonic academy, igniting a merciless war for succession where only the strongest survive. Amidst this deadly game, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon stands alone, hiding an impossible, otherworldly secret right beneath his skin. Concealing the voice of the Nano Machine from the rest of the world, the young prince tests the limits of his new technological companion. He learns with awe that the machine didn't just heal his mortal wounds, it completely reconstructed his flawed physical vessel. The complex future terminology leaves him bewildered, but the sheer reality of his altered body is undeniable. A sudden knock breaks his concentration as a loyal servant enters the study to prepare him for the trials ahead. Deciding that the name of his internal ally is far too long, the prince casually shortens it to Nano. The artificial intelligence seamlessly registers the new designation, ready to obey its user's very next command. Standing in his dusty study, the prince realizes he must learn to fight if he wants to survive the upcoming academy selection. Unfortunately, the only texts available to a talentless, neglected royal are basic manuals on blood points and vital chi. Doubt creeps into his mind, knowing that even a lifetime of practicing these low-level breathing methods rarely yields any real power. But Nano offers a revolutionary alternative to the tedious centuries-old methods of martial arts study. The machine instructs the prince to simply pick up a manual and flip through the pages at a rapid pace. Confused but desperate for an edge, the boy opens the book, letting his fingers slide across the paper without reading a single word. As the pages blur past, a brilliant digital interface scans the text, translating ancient ink into raw data. Nano requests permission to transfer the fully analyzed information directly into the user's brain. With a single nod of acceptance, a massive wave of absolute comprehension floods the prince's mind, bypassing years of agonizing study in a fraction of a second. The once powerless boy opens his eyes, a newfound confidence burning deep within his gaze. He realizes that the ancient rules of training have been permanently shattered. Armed with an omnipresent supercomputer and a perfect body, the forgotten prince prepares to step into the deadly arena of the academy, ready to rewrite the history of the Jianghu forever. The day has finally arrived, the dawn of his enrollment into the merciless demonic academy. Anxiety grips Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon's heart, for he knows that stepping across that threshold means entering a legal war zone where his life will constantly be on the line. He looks back on the solemn oath he made upon his mother's death, a vow never to learn martial arts until he officially entered the academy. This bitter restraint was his only shield against the predatory vigilance of the 6 supreme clans. But now, his time of enforced helplessness has run out. In the quiet of the morning, Nano presents an extraordinary solution to his lack of training, offering to seamlessly scan and copy the martial movements of his loyal protector, Guard Zhang. The astonished prince learns that his futuristic ally doesn't just record what it sees. Its deep space database already harbors countless legendary combat techniques from a future era, all ready to be downloaded directly into his consciousness. Yet, raw knowledge alone cannot save a boy in the unforgiving realm of the Jianghu. The machine issues a stark warning. While his mind will instantly comprehend the ultimate forms of combat, his untrained, unconditioned body will literally tear its own muscles apart if he attempts to execute them. To survive the physical strain, Nano proposes a total muscle simulation, an agonizingly thorough procedure requiring the synchronized effort of every single microscopic machine flowing through his veins. The impending transformation promises a level of physical torment so severe that the system recommends putting the prince under high-tech anesthesia, citing millions of historical cases where users completely lost consciousness from the pain. But the proud, hardened royal, forged by a lifetime of neglect and suffering, flatly refuses the sedation. He demands to experience every single ounce of the agony, wanting to feel the exact price of the power he is about to inherit. Slamming his fists into the floor as violent tremors rack his frame, Yeo-Woon collapses in sheer torment while the nano machines forcefully dismantle, reforge, and reinforce his muscular structure layer by layer. Every agonizing second of the reconstruction feels like an eternity in hell, but when the process finally ceases, the young prince stands up an entirely transformed weapon. His body now possesses the flawless muscle memory and physical conditioning of a veteran master, leaving him perfectly prepared to march into the demonic academy and face his mortal enemies head-on. The excruciating torment of the muscle reconstruction finally comes to an end, leaving the young prince gasping for air on the floor. He silently vows never to undergo such a brutal process without anesthesia again, but the unbelievable results speak for themselves. In a matter of hours, his physical vessel has been completely overwritten, granting him the dense, flawless muscle memory of a warrior who has trained relentlessly for over 20 years. Eager to test his new body, the prince grips his weapon and leaps into motion, cutting through the air with terrifying precision. Every stance, every slash, and every form of guard Jang's dagger technique flows from him with a devastating, natural power he has never known before. Yet, amidst the thrill of his newfound strength, a sudden dread washes over him. He realizes that in the strict, unforgiving culture of the Murim, secretly copying another master's martial arts is a forbidden taboo punishable by death. When guard Jang suddenly enters the room and catches his master perfectly executing his hidden techniques, Yeo-Woon braces himself for severe judgment and betrayal. But instead of rage, the loyal protector's eyes fill with tears of profound pride and relief. The old warrior confesses that if it weren't for the deadly surveillance of the 6 rival clans, he would have gladly broken his oaths to teach the young prince everything himself. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Yeo-Woon accepts one final, invaluable gift from his mentor, a hidden manual detailing the flow of internal energy, the Nigong. Wiping away his tears, the prince swears that he will never show weakness or cry again. Leaving his broken past behind, the hardened royal steps out of the estate and marches toward the massive gates of the demonic academy, ready to unleash his futuristic secret and seize the throne by force. The gates of the demonic academy loom ahead, but before Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon can even step inside, his enemies strike from the dark, secretly stealing his official name tag. He instantly realizes this petty humiliation is the work of the 6 ruling clans, a desperate attempt to deny him his rightful place among the high-ranking elite. Choosing survival over reckless pride, the young prince swallows his anger and decides to wait, refueling the absolute vow burning in his chest, to grow stronger than anyone else within these walls. The restless murmurs of hundreds of cadets suddenly vanish as a suffocating pressure, descends upon the grand courtyard. Stepping onto the high balcony with an overwhelming, majestic presence is the absolute ruler of the realm, the lord of the demonic cult, Cheon Yeo-Woon. Looking up at the formidable leader, Yeo-Woon freezes in profound realization, staring directly into the eyes of the biological father who abandoned him to a lifetime of predatory assassination attempts. With a single, thunderous command for silence, the cult leader paralyzes the entire plaza. His voice, heavily amplified by a terrifying depth of internal Nigong energy, vibrates through the very air, sounding impossibly clear and deep inside the ears of every cadet. He welcomes the new generation, challenging them to forge powerful alliances, endure the upcoming trials, and transform themselves into the ultimate weapon of the cult. The crowd erupts into a roaring frenzy of fanatic loyalty, but the fleeting celebration is cut short as the massive iron gate slams shut, completely severing the young warriors from the outside world. Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon looks around at the sea of ruthless competitors surrounding him, knowing he is finally locked inside a pit of wolves, where his futuristic secret and iron will face their true baptism of blood. The chief instructor of the demonic academy, Lee Hwa Myung, commands the stage with a ruthless authority, ready to lay down the absolute and merciless laws governing this sacred legal war zone. He instantly shatters the arrogant pride of the high-born noble heirs, coldly declaring that their grand lineages, stolen titles, and family prestige mean absolutely nothing within these walls. From this moment on, every single student enters with the exact same Beye Espe Ave Nyeru Ikratkoi rank of a low-level warrior, forcing them to realize that only through a baptism of blood and survival will they ever climb the hierarchy, while the weak are doomed to be discarded like worthless trash. Before the cadets can even process the weight of his words, the instructor announces that their first grueling trial begins immediately, calling forth a legendary and feared figure from the upper echelons of the cult, Hang So-yu, the formidable leader of the Sound clan and the fifth elder of the demonic cult. She takes her position on the high balcony, gripping a traditional musical instrument, which in her hands serves as a devastating weapon of mass destruction. The rules of this sudden initiation are simple yet terrifyingly brutal. The cadets must withstand a lethal, concentrated musical energy wave, and anyone who cannot endure the acoustic onslaught for 1 full minute without losing consciousness will fail and face immediate expulsion. The moment her fingers strike the first chord, a wave of pure, invisible agony ripples violently across the courtyard, causing the very air to vibrate with suffocating pressure. Hundreds of unprepared cadets erupt into desperate screams of torment, frantically clawing at their ears to block out the sound, but their efforts are entirely futile as the lethal frequencies easily bypass their hands to strike directly at their internal organs. Meanwhile, the high-born descendants of the 6 supreme clans and the elite children of high-ranking elders merely look on with condescending smiles, effortlessly channeling their internal Nigong energy to neutralize the resonance, thanks to their years of privileged, secretive training. Amidst the chaotic chorus of agony and falling bodies, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon stands completely frozen and serene, drawing sharp glances of shock and suspicion from the surviving rivals around him. While the destructive sound waves actively attempt to rupture his body from the inside out, a cold, mechanical consciousness boots up within his mind to assess the threat. Nano instantly registers the hostile energy wave, recalculating its internal defenses to generate a precise counter-vibration that perfectly cancels out the deadly frequencies before they can inflict a single scratch on the prince's brain or internal organs. Armed with the ultimate power of future technology, the forgotten prince effortlessly passes his first baptism of fire, leaving his enemies completely unaware of the hidden titan rising in their midst. The fifth elder and the high-born noble heir stare in absolute disbelief, their wounded pride morphing into intense rage as they watch Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon endure the lethal acoustic trial with a serene, mocking composure. Unbeknownst to them, the prince is completely insulated from the sonic assault, forcing the frustrated fifth elder to amplify her performance to a devastating level of power out of pure spite. Sensing the escalation, the prince makes a calculated, radical gamble, commanding Nano to intentionally deactivate his sound cancellation shield and allow the sonic waves to strike his body. He realizes that to survive the intense, lethal scrutiny of the clans, he must convincingly look like a broken survivor who barely passed the test, rather than a suspicious anomaly. The immediate consequence of his choice is catastrophic, as a wave of internal devastation rips through his body. Nano's automated system reports a terrifying 30% damage rate to his internal organs, causing a violent backflow of blood as the sheer kinetic energy of the sound threatens to tear him apart from the inside out. Witnessing the young royal's sudden, gruesome agony, the other instructors panic, screaming at the fifth elder that her petty vendetta has gone too far and that the death of a royal line heir will bring ruin upon them all. Just as the 1-minute timer expires, the music violently cuts off, and the prince collapses heavily onto the blood-stained floorboards, gasping for air as his vision darkens from severe blood loss. As the dust settles, a renowned physician and the anxious instructors rush to the fallen boy's side, assuming they are dealing with a corpse. However, in the darkness of his own mind, the prince's mechanical ally has already initiated emergency protocols, entering a rapid self-healing mode to forcefully reconstruct his ruptured organs and stem the fatal bleeding. The examining instructors are completely paralyzed with shock when they read his pulse, unable to comprehend how a boy with absolutely zero trace of internal Nigong energy could possibly survive an attack of that magnitude. Believing he is simply a resilient madman with an iron will, they reluctantly announce his survival, completely unaware that future technology has just successfully deceived the greatest masters of the cult. With the brutal initiation officially over, the chief instructor takes the stage once more to announce the grim reality of the final tally. Out of 500 elite cadets who proudly entered the academy gates that morning, a shocking tally of over 300 now lie unconscious, severely injured, or permanently disqualified, leaving only a fraction of the original group standing. Looking over the broken crowd, the instructor coldly hands out the black name tags of the lowest-ranked warriors to the survivors, declaring that they have barely earned the right to exist in this sanctuary. Nursing his rapidly healing wounds, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon tightly grips his new badge, knowing that while he barely survived the opening gambit, he has successfully hidden his mechanical god from the watchful eyes of his executioners. The heavy oak doors of the academy's infirmary burst open as frantic instructors wheel in the battered, blood-soaked body of Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon. Dr. Baek Jong-myung, a passionate healer renowned for his erratic yet brilliant medical expertise, is initially thrilled to have a real patient on the very first day of the semester. However, his excitement instantly evaporates into grim professionalism when he examines the young royal, realizing the boy has suffered catastrophic, near-fatal internal hemorrhaging from a brutal shockwave of energy. As the doctor frantically prepares his medical tools to save the dying prince, a miracle unfolds beneath the surface. Deep within his unconscious mind, Nano's automated crisis protocol enters its final, aggressive phase of self-healing, forcefully sealing the ruptured blood vessels and completely regenerating the shredded tissue of his internal organs. By the time the bewildered doctor places his fingers on the boy's wrist to read his pulse, he is frozen in absolute astonishment. The fatal internal damage has mysteriously vanished, leaving behind a perfectly healthy, pristine body that defies all logical medical science. Hours later, the prince silently regains consciousness, realizing he is no longer alone in the quiet infirmary room. Sensing a monumental, suffocating presence nearby, he decides to keep his eyes shut and pretend to be sound asleep to evaluate the potential threat. But the mysterious intruder is none other than the Subdemon Academy Guardian, a legendary, battle-hardened master of the cult. With a booming laugh, the terrifying old warrior uses his sheer internal Nigong energy to physically lift the paralyzed prince into a sitting position, without ever laying a single finger on him, effortlessly shattering the boy's desperate ruse. The legendary guardian mocks the prince's bold attempt to deceive him, revealing that any true master can instantly detect a fake sleep simply by listening to the unnatural rhythm of a person's breathing. While Nano provides a detailed digital breakdown of human respiratory statistics in the back of the prince's mind, Yeo-Woon ignores the data, focusing entirely on the formidable warrior standing before him. Intrigued by the young royal's immense grit, fearless eyes, and impossible survival, the powerful guardian grins wildly, realizing that this forgotten, once talentless prince might just be the most dangerous anomaly the demonic academy has ever seen.
Thank you for watching all the way through. Part 2 is coming soon, so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. See you in the next one.
Inside the quiet infirmary, the right guardian of the academy, Subdemon, tests Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon's strategic mind, demanding to know if the young royal realizes why he was single-handedly sent to this isolated medical room. He reveals a hidden truth of the Murim world. While ordinary injured cadets can quickly heal themselves through basic internal meditation, Yeo-Woon's complete lack of internal Nigong energy makes him a helpless exception who would naturally lag far behind his ruthless competitors. The legendary warrior throws down a tempting piece of paper right next to the prince's bed, subtly exposing it as a rare, highly coveted manual detailing the fundamental breathing techniques of Nigong. The sight of the manual ignites a fierce fire in Yeo-Woon's chest, as he instantly recognizes this moment as a monumental loophole in his lifetime of oppression. Due to a restrictive, blood-bound oath forced upon his late mother by the 6 supreme ruling clans, the prince was legally banned from ever learning the martial arts or breathing methods of the cult, a death sentence designed to keep him permanently weak. Realizing that the Guardian is deliberately presenting him with a golden bridge to bypass this absolute restriction, Yeo-Woon ignores all doubts and swallows his pride, urgently begging the powerful master to accept him as an official, personal student. Amused by the young royal's sharp intuition and absolute greed for survival, the right guardian steps forward to accept the arrangement, demanding that his new disciple bow deeply twice to seal their sacred teacher-student bond. However, as Yeo-Woon begins to lower his head, the old master suddenly grips his shoulders with a fierce intensity, forcefully stopping him mid-motion. With a stern and proud voice, the guardian reminds the boy that the sacred blood of the Cheon family flowing through his veins means he must never bend his knee or bow his head to anyone in this world, save for the absolute lord of the demonic cult himself. Leaving the prince with a lingering, satisfied grin, the powerful guardian exits the infirmary, commanding his personal henchmen to watch over the boy while he rests for the remainder of the day. Left alone with the invaluable text, Yeo-Woon realizes he has successfully secured a formidable ally inside the Academy's hierarchy, gaining a protector to shield him from the immediate wrath of the clans. With the Nigong breathing manual resting in his hands and Nano waiting silently in his mind to decipher its secrets, the Forgotten Prince prepares to finally unlock the forbidden power of internal energy that his executioners fought so desperately to deny him. With the military groups finalized, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon walks out onto the training grounds to meet Group 8, only to find himself surrounded by a ragtag assembly of low-ranking outcasts. Among them is a nervous, soft-spoken boy named Oh-Jang, who instantly recognizes the prince and welcomes him with a mixture of awe and profound relief. Looking around at the anxious faces of his teammates, Yeo-Woon realizes that the Academy instructors intentionally grouped the weakest, most vulnerable candidates together, setting them up to be easy targets and guaranteed failures in the ruthless strategic trial ahead. The harsh reality of their situation strikes immediately as the elite leaders of the 6 supreme clans begin scanning the plaza, treating the newly formed groups like prey to be conquered or used. Suddenly, a towering, menacing figure blocks Yeo-Woon's path. It is a high-born candidate from the powerful Blade clan, radiating absolute malice and condescension. He openly mocks Group 8, loudly declaring them a pathetic pack of losers who will be crushed into the dirt, intentionally trying to break their fragile morale before the training even begins. While Oh-Jang and the other members of Group 8 tremble in fear, backing away from the bully's terrifying aura, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon stands perfectly still, his eyes narrowing into ice-cold slits. He doesn't flinch or show a single trace of submission, completely catching the arrogant noble off guard with his fearless, unyielding posture. Deep within the prince's mind, Nano is already operating at maximum capacity, silently scanning the aggressor's physical stance, calculating his muscle density, and preparing an optimal combat countermeasure in case blood is spilled. Refusing to let the noble's psychological warfare break his team, Yeo-Woon delivers a sharp, biting retort that completely shatters the bully's smug composure, drawing gasps of shock from the gathering crowd. The tension on the field skyrockets to a deadly breaking point as the furious Blade clan heir grips his weapon, realizing this once talentless prince possesses a dangerous, unexplainable spine. Tightly holding his bronze badge, Cheon Yeo-Woon silently vows that he will not let his group become stepping stones for the elite, ready to use both future technology and his newly acquired Nigong energy to rewrite the rules of the game. Inside the quiet medical wing, the Academy's chief instructor, Lee Hwa Myung, listens grimly as Dr. Beek delivers a discouraging prognosis regarding Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon's severe internal injuries. The physician states that without any pre-existing internal Nigong energy to accelerate his healing, the young royal will be forced to undergo at least 2 full weeks of absolute bed rest. This timeline sparks immediate concern for the instructor, who realizes that with the highly competitive second test scheduled just 3 weeks away, a 14-day delay will leave the prince hopelessly behind his peers and likely seal his elimination. As night falls and the instructor leaves the sleeping prince to rest, a sudden gust of wind cuts through the room as the right guardian slips through the window, heavily reeking of alcohol. The eccentric master wastes no time and immediately demands to know if his new disciple completed the daunting homework assigned the previous day, memorizing the complex breathing of 1,000 marshals. Expecting failure or excuses, the guardian is visibly stunned when Yeo-Woon calmly reveals that he has completely memorized every single syllable, unaware that Nano had already effortlessly mapped out the text for him. The master quickly shakes off his surprise, explaining the extreme urgency of their situation to the young prince. Because the strict laws of the Demonic Academy Absolute prohibit any outside martial arts instruction, once a cadet is assigned to the regular dormitories, this brief hospital stay is their only window of opportunity to train in secret. Warning the boy that they have no time to waste on traditional, slow meditation methods, the guardian commands Yeo-Woon to sit on the ground and brace himself for a dangerously reckless shortcut. With a fierce grin, the powerful warrior presses his hands directly against the prince's back, intending to forcefully inject and violently stamp his own massive reservoir of pure Kai directly into the boy's undeveloped meridians. He warns Yeo-Woon to bite down hard and remain absolutely silent, as a single scream will alert the patrolling academy guards and expose their forbidden alliance. As the agonizing torrent of foreign energy floods the prince's system, Nano immediately goes on high alert, analyzing the incoming Kai or chakra waves and preparing to systematically process the raw power that will permanently alter the boy's destiny. Following the right guardian's intense and exhausting nocturnal lesson, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon opens his eyes to a new dawn, feeling the newly formed threads of internal Kai firmly taking root within his body. The old master's brutal and reckless shortcut proved entirely successful, leaving the prince with the monumental task of consolidating this raw energy within just 1 week. Armed with Nano's flawless anatomical tracking and his own absolute willpower, Yeo-Woon commits himself to endless, silent repetitions of the complex breathing patterns, determined to build a solid foundation of Nigong before his temporary sanctuary in the medical wing comes to an inevitable end. Meanwhile, out on the scorching, sun-drenched training grounds of the academy, the brutal reality of the second test begins to crush the cadets' spirits. Instructor Lee Hwa Myung oversees the rigorous formation drills, pushing the newly formed groups to their absolute physical limits as they try to learn complex military strategies. After a particularly satisfactory performance by Group 3, the chief instructor pulls aside its top candidate to discuss the missing anomaly of their roster, casually confirming the doctor's prognosis that Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon is trapped in the infirmary and completely out of commission for at least 2 weeks. The news of the prince's prolonged hospitalization spreads like wildfire through the ranks, instantly reaching the ears of Murim, the arrogant and ruthless heir of the Supreme Blade clan. Instead of celebrating his rival's apparent misfortune, the hot-headed noble flies into a violent, destructive rage, smashing the training equipment around him in pure frustration. He vehemently refuses to believe that the resilient prince who completely defied the Fifth Elder's devastating acoustic trial could be so easily broken, suspecting that the forgotten royal is using the infirmary stay as a cowardly tactic to hide from the clan's wrath. As the other highborn heirs try to calm his explosive temper, pointing out that an elite academy doctor would never forge a medical report, Murim's suspicion only deepens into an obsessive vendetta. He realizes that if the talentless prince somehow returns after 2 weeks without a drop of internal energy, he will become a massive liability that drags down the academy's overall standard. Little do the Supreme clans know, while they waste their breath plotting his downfall on the dirt fields, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon is quietly executing a flawless digital and martial evolution, transforming himself into a terrifying weapon right beneath their heavily guarded noses. The mysterious assassin slowly regains consciousness in the dim medical wing, only to find his limbs completely bound and pinned to the mattress. His confusion instantly turns into pure horror as he looks up and sees Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon standing over him, completely healthy, and showing absolutely zero signs of the catastrophic internal damage that reported him bedridden. Before the intruder can even process this terrifying anomaly, he feels a draft on his head and catches a glimpse of his reflection, letting out a muffled scream of absolute despair as he realizes the prince has completely shaved him bald while he was passed out. Yeo-Woon wastes no time with pleasantries, coldly demanding to know who sent the assassin to infiltrate the infirmary and sabotage his recovery. The bound captive attempts to play dumb, loudly arguing that any act of violence or torture inside the demonic academy is strictly prohibited by the absolute laws of the institution, meaning the prince will face severe punishment if he spills blood. Amused by the assassin's desperate legal defense, Yeo-Woon calmly points out the ultimate flaw in his logic. Since the intruder snuck in like a thief to commit a crime, his very presence exists outside the protection of the academy rules. The stubborn captive glares back with defiant pride, confidently mocking the young royal and boasting that no amount of physical torture will ever force him to open his mouth. He firmly believes the sheltered prince lacks the stomach and the brutal experience required to break a hardened agent of the clans. But Yeo-Woon merely offers a chilling, detached smile, noting that while his childhood home was deprived of basic necessities, the Academy's medical wing is incredibly well stocked with specialized tools that open up boundless, creative possibilities for interrogation. To the assassin's growing dread, the prince reaches into a nearby medical cabinet and pulls out a tray filled with long, glinting acupuncture needles. As the captive's hands subconsciously clench in sudden fear, Yeo-Woon explains that with Nano's precise neurological tracking operating in the back of his mind, he knows exactly which nerve clusters to pierce to amplify human pain to its absolute maximum limit. Realizing he is trapped in a room with a calculating tech-assisted monster who can bypass his physical resilience, the hairless assassin begins to sweat profusely, watching in sheer terror as the first silver needle descends toward his exposed flesh. The Right Guardian secretly observes Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon in absolute disbelief, realizing the young royal has completely shattered all expectations by fully mastering the complex internal energy circulation in just 5 days. Originally planning a slow, painful 2-week process to help the boy anchor his Kai, the eccentric master recognizes that he is dealing with a once-in-a-generation martial anomaly. Shaking off his astonishment, the Guardian decides to aggressively accelerate their forbidden training schedule, commanding the prince to immediately retrieve the precious Black Dragon Ball, the highly coveted medicinal pill awarded to cadets who successfully survived the Academy's brutal first trial. The master explains the critical mechanics of the rare medicine, warning Yeo-Woon that he must thoroughly chew the foul-smelling pill before swallowing to ensure his undeveloped meridians absorb its potent essence. As the prince bites down into the medicine, a putrid, bitter stench instantly paralyzes his tongue, triggering a violent urge to gag from the sickening taste. Before his body can reject the substance, the Guardian forcefully presses his palms against the boy's back once more, channeling his massive internal energy to violently catalyze the chemical breakdown and guide the surging medicine through the prince's bloodstream. The moment the dense, legendary compound enters the prince's system, a massive structural emergency protocol triggers within his mind. Nano immediately flags the foreign agent, identifying it as a powerful catalyst designed to aggressively stimulate muscle activity, accelerate cell reproduction, and permanently optimize body metabolism. Recognizing the immense potential of the rare substance, Yeo-Woon immediately grants Nano full authorization to take absolute control of the absorption process, allowing the future technology to bypass the traditional, wasteful limits of human digestion and forcefully cycle the energy at maximum digital efficiency. As the synchronized fusion of future science and ancient medicine reaches its peak, the Right Guardian is nearly blown back by a sudden, terrifying eruption of raw power vibrating from the boy's body. Witnessing the prince flawlessly process 100% of the pill's colossal energy without a single drop of waste, the hardened old master trembles in absolute shock, inwardly declaring that the forgotten, once talentless royal possesses the legendary, mythical body of a war god. Completely unaware that a mechanical deity is actively rewriting his cellular structure from within, the awestruck guardian realizes he has just unleashed an unstoppable titan who will permanently shatter the balance of power inside the demonic academy. The next morning in the medical wing, Dr. Beek lets out a loud, uncontrollable burst of laughter that echoes through the halls, completely unable to contain himself at the absurd sight before him. The secret infiltrator, who had snuck into the clinic to sabotage the prince, sits miserable on the examination table, forced to wear a makeshift bandana to hide his freshly shaved, gleaming bald head. While the doctor assumes this was just a bizarre prank or a strange medical anomaly, he quickly shakes off his amusement, reminding himself that the strict oath of the Motto House commands personal physicians to focus entirely on healing and never question the private affairs of their royal patients. 2 days later, the scene shifts to the tense quarters of Group 8, where the bald assassin, now revealed to be a cadet named Yeo-Woon, is cornered and brutally interrogated by the cold and calculating Cheon Yeo-Woon. The ruthless heir of the Blade clan aggressively demands to know why Yeo-Woon failed his mission to sever Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon's tendons, refusing to believe that a simple medical setback could protect the target overnight. Desperate to save his own skin, the terrified boy tearfully confesses that the prince was completely unharmed, and that it was Yeo-Woon himself who overpowered him and shaved his head as a chilling, silent warning to anyone who dares to cross his path. Furious at the sudden betrayal and the sheer incompetence of his underling, Cheon Yeo-Woon delivers a punishing blow that sends the bald cadet crashing heavily into the floorboards, leaving him bruised and weeping in the corner. The arrogant noble refuses to acknowledge the rising threat of the forgotten prince, assuming that Yeo-Woon simply used cowardly tricks or external help from the academy doctors to survive the assassination attempt. Nursing his wounded pride and simmering in intense hatred, Yeo-Woon storms out of the quarters alongside his elites, leaving a vengeful, broken Yeo-Woon behind, who bitterly curses both rival princes and wishes death upon them all. 7 days pass in a flash of intense, hidden preparation, leading to the final morning of the prince's mandatory stay at the Sam Motto House Clinic. As Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon gathers his belongings to officially return to the main academy building, Dr. Beek watches him with a mixture of professional pride and deep curiosity. The physician casually asks the young royal if he has begun practicing martial arts, completely unaware that Nano has already helped the prince flawlessly absorb the legendary Black Dragon Ball and build a terrifying foundation of Nigong. Stepping out into the blinding sunlight with a cold, determined smile, the forgotten prince prepares to reunite with Group 8, ready to unleash his new godlike strength upon his unsuspecting executioners. While Chief Instructor Lee Hwa Myung quietly arranges to reassign the guards on the infirmary floor now that the Right Guardian has stopped his secret visits, the old master himself returns to Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon one final time. Looking at his disciple, who has spent the last week in non-stop, exhausting cultivation, the Guardian delivers a bittersweet announcement. The prince's mandatory clinic stay has officially come to an end. This means the young royal must return to the regular academy dormitories immediately, permanently cutting off their private window for forbidden, face-to-face instruction. Refusing to send his only student back into the viper's nest empty-handed, the legendary warrior reveals a final, magnificent parting gift: the butterfly dance of the Blade King. Stepping into the center of the room, the Guardian unleashes a mesmerizing, blinding demonstration of the rare footwork and blade technique, moving with such lethal elegance that his afterimages mimic a swarm of ethereal butterflies. As he strikes, the raw kinetic pressure of his movements generates a violent vortex of wind that physically shatters the heavy floorboards, demonstrating a level of supreme mastery that leaves the young prince completely awestruck. While the old master assumes the prince will only be able to memorize a fraction of this elite technique on his first viewing, Yeo-Woon's mind is operating on a godlike digital frequency. In the background of his consciousness, Nano has already initiated a complete 3D environmental scan, flawlessly recording every single muscle twitch, angle of movement, and speed calculation of the Guardian's performance. The future technology effortlessly deciphers the complex ancient martial art, translating the fleeting, beautiful dance into permanent, pixel-perfect tactical data that is instantly burned into the prince's muscle memory. Deeply moved by the old warrior's genuine care and the intense training his master endured to reach this peak, Yeo-Woon hides his technological advantage, offering a respectful, traditional salute of gratitude. The right Guardian smiles proudly, giving his disciple a final, stern warning never to lose to the elite heirs of the supreme clans once he steps back onto the academy dirt. Armed with a perfectly reconstructed body, 10 years' worth of concentrated Nigong energy, and the fully cataloged secrets of the Blade King, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon officially leaves the medical wing, ready to shatter the arrogant status quo of the demonic academy. Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon officially returns to the training grounds for the afternoon group drills, instantly becoming the center of suffocating tension as the low-ranking outcasts of Group 8 whisper in disbelief. He is coldly greeted by Murim, the ruthless Blade clan heir, who also happens to be the designated tactical leader of their shared squadron. Expecting a heavily crippled or deeply intimidated victim, Murim is infuriated when the prince calmly states he is completely cured, casually ignoring the noble's aggressive verbal provocations and walking straight past him to take his place in the formation. The instructors waste no time and loudly initiate the practical combat drill using real, blunted swords, warning the cadets that any severe tactical failures or careless accidents will result in immediate expulsion from the academy. As the simulated battlefield erupts into chaos, Murim and his elite lackeys closely monitor the prince, confidently expecting the royal underdog to instantly ruin the formation due to missing 2 solid weeks of physical practice. To their absolute horror, Yeo-Woon moves with flawless, razor-sharp precision, executing every complex squad movement and half-step advance without a single micro-mistake. Deep within the prince's consciousness, the drill is nothing more than a simplified digital map, as Nano actively processes the entire battlefield terrain and feeds him real-time coordinates for perfect positioning. Realizing that the once talentless prince has somehow become an impeccable asset instead of a liability, Murim's shock rapidly morphs into a desperate, malicious panic. Refusing to let a peasant-blooded rival look successful, the unhinged noble covertly locks eyes with the bald cadet, Yeo-Woon, subtly commanding his terrified puppet to deliberately sabotage the squad's defensive line during the upcoming third formation shift. As the squad leader barks out the orders for the next high-stakes maneuver, calling for a triple-stacked shield wall with swords thrusting through the gaps, the trap is officially set. Yeo-Woon prepares to intentionally compromise the tactical integrity of the wall, aiming to leave Yeo-Woon completely exposed to a sudden, crushing frontal assault from the opposing training forces. Completely aware of the hidden treachery plotting around him, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon maintains his ice-cold composure, ready to turn their arrogant, underhanded sabotage into a devastating display of his own hidden dominance. Following the intense afternoon group drills, Chief Instructor Lee Hwa Myung dismisses the exhausted cadets, announcing that they will have absolutely zero free time for the next 4 days as they undergo a grueling, non-stop training cycle until bedtime under their respective leaders. Watching the cadets disperse, the chief instructor contemplates Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon's shocking performance, noting that the boy's internal Kai is exponentially stronger than it should be. He realizes that the only logical explanation for such a terrifying explosion of power is that the once talentless prince must possess a rare, miraculous physique, naturally capable of absorbing the complete, unadulterated effects of the legendary Black Dragon Ball. The scene transitions to the Grand Armament Great Hall, where hundreds of starving candidates gather for dinner, turning the crowded cafeteria into a hotbed of whispers and hidden tension. As Yeo-Woon quietly eats with the low-ranking members of Group 8, Murim deliberately approaches his table alongside his elite lackeys, slamming his hands down to violently disrupt the meal. Simmering with intense humiliation from the prince's flawless performance on the training field, the arrogant Blade Clan heir aims to execute a ruthless psychological execution, intending to completely disdain and crush the royal underdog's spirit in front of the entire academy. Murim begins loudly mocking the prince's mother and his low-born status, repeatedly calling him peasant blood, while demanding to know if he enjoyed lazily resting in the clinic, while the rest of the group slaved away in the dirt. Instead of flinching or showing anger, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon sets his chopsticks down with an eerie, freezing composure, turning the noble's words entirely against him. With a sharp, ringing voice that echoes through the crowded hall, the prince calmly asks if calling a member of the direct royal lineage peasant blood constitutes a treasonous, direct insult to the absolute lord of the demonic cult himself. The explosive counterargument completely catches Murim off guard, turning his smug face pale as he realizes the deadly political trap he just walked into. The massive commotion immediately draws a massive crowd, attracting the attention of other powerful Supreme Clan heirs, including Chinwon Raya of the Sound Clan, who eagerly watch the high-stakes standoff unfold like vultures. Backed into a corner by the prince's brilliant legal maneuvering and furious at his own strategic failure, Murim grips his fists in a murderous rage, realizing that this once helpless royal underdog has evolved into a master manipulator who can weaponize the cult's absolute laws to destroy his executioners. The massive dining hall erupts into a violent, high-stakes battleground as Murim unleashes the formidable martial arts of the Blade Clan, aiming to forcefully crush Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon right in front of the stunned spectators. To the absolute horror of the gathering crowd, the once talentless prince instantly reveals his hidden Nigong energy, flawlessly activating the rare butterfly dance footwork taught to him by the right guardian. Moving with mesmerizing, fluid speed, Yeo-Woon effortlessly evades the heavy, destructive blows, generating a shocking sonic pressure that forces the arrogant noble back and shatters the surrounding wooden dining tables into splinters. Despite his brilliant evasive maneuvers and superior internal energy reserves, the young prince quickly hits a dangerous tactical bottleneck due to his complete lack of real-world combat experience. Murim, a battle-hardened prodigy raised on the ruthless front lines of the clans, rapidly adapts to the fluid footwork, predicting the prince's movements and executing a devastating mid-air transition into the Spring Clan's continuous batting fist technique. caught off guard by a brutal, low-angled sweeping kick that he failed to foresee. Yeo-Woon is thrown off balance, realizing with grim certainty that raw power alone cannot seal his victory against a masterful tactician. Sensing his opponent's momentary hesitation, the enraged Blade Clan heir violently presses his advantage, locking the prince into a suffocating corner and executing the lethal fifth formation. Instant attack, Spring's roar. As the devastating, ore-infused fist barreled straight toward the prince's unprotected chest, a sudden flashing digital warning overrides Yeo-Woon's consciousness. Nano instantly registers the lethal external threat, automatically expanding the prince's visual functions to slow down time and initiating an emergency built-in self-defense combat tutorial to forcefully counter the incoming strike. In a spectacular, gravity-defying display of future technology, rewriting the laws of ancient combat, Nano takes absolute control of the prince's musculoskeletal system, executing a series of bizarre, scientifically perfect counterstrikes that no human martial artist could ever anticipate. The mechanical system forcefully shifts Yeo-Woon's joints past traditional anatomical limits, completely bypassing Murim's defensive guard and delivering a punishing, bone-shattering sequence that leaves the arrogant noble coughing up blood on the floor. Standing tall amidst the absolute silence of the shocked cafeteria, Prince Cheon Yeo-Woon looks down at his broken oppressor, fully realizing that the fusion of future science and ancient Kai has officially made him untouchable.
Thank you for watching all the way through. Part 2 is coming soon, so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. See you in the next one.